20 years in reducing extreme poverty. But some analysts believe that in order for poverty to be eradicated, the country's growth policies need to address inequality more directly. Gemma Corrigan, who is practice lead for inclusive growth at the World Economic Forum, joins us now to discuss that in some detail. Gemma, thanks so much for your time today. We know there's been this growing discontent globally, not just in South Africa, about growing inequality, whether it's income, whether it is around wealth or even opportunity as well. Can we put all of this down to economics?
Well, I think a lot of debate has been going on out there that economics has failed us, that we really need to rethink our growth models and have a more holistic way in which we measure our success. We can't look at GDP as a metric anymore. We really need to have a broader measure of progress that takes into account not only economic factors on one hand, but also social and environmental, and really to have a holistic model that brings all of those together.
And the phrase that many people are using is inclusive growth. And I feel like we're still in the defining phases of what that means. How do you think of inclusive growth?
Well, at the World Economic Forum, we think of inclusive growth as growth that benefits all, that actually trickles down and improves living standards for the vast majority of people. So basically, it's growth that benefits people and doesn't come at the expense of the planet.
Hasn't it been trickle-down economics that's gotten us into this mess?
Well, I think it's rising tide lifts all boats. It hasn't quite worked out the way we thought. So I think there's a lot of a whole shift that needs to happen in how we structure our economic activity, how we reward and incentivize business activity, more in this direction that's more sustainable and more inclusive.
And I imagine this is not just a conversation among governments, that the private sector, the wealth creators themselves need to be very much involved in this.
Yes, indeed. I think business obviously has a huge role to play, and what we're seeing increasingly is that more and more businesses are actually taking on this agenda. I think companies realize that inequality is simply bad for business. It depresses consumption if we have a shrinking middle class. And at the extreme, it can lead to social unrest, which is very disruptive to business, and can even lose their license to operate. So I think we are seeing actually a big shift in the way businesses are operating and thinking about how can they innovate in ways that actually drive social inclusion, and how do they have more sustainable business models.
And in this more globalized world, I remember, in fact, I think it was at last year's annual meeting of the World Economic Forum, there was a big discussion about globalization, whether it was good for us or bad for us. Lots of talk about countries starting to look internally and becoming a lot more protectionist. How do we balance the two?
Well, I think if we look at globalization, it's been a huge driver in improving living standards, reducing poverty. I think we're still very much in favor of open borders, and trade has, transformed people's lives. Although countries are turning inward, I think we cannot lose sight of the benefits that globalization has brought, and we just need to find a way that we can make it work for more.
Are there countries that are starting to really think about this and starting to put some potential policies in place to bring in those who have been excluded from the growth picture?
Well, a lot of economies now, especially when we're looking at the fourth industrial revolution, are looking at how technology can be a major disruptor and also an enabler of bringing more people into the economy and helping them to upgrade and to really leapfrog ahead. I think we have a few different projects underway. One, for example, using drones to deliver medical services and medical equipment in Rwanda, which is now spreading to other countries in the region. And I think we're seeing a lot of ways in which technology is being a huge enabler.
And talking about technology and the fourth industrial revolution, one of the concerns, of course, in the past has been how do we ensure that we don't leave people behind, right? That we take people along as we enter this new phase of the global economy. How much thinking is going into that?
I think a lot of thinking is going into all these new emerging technologies, looking at AI, robotics, machine learning. But the fact is, we also have to get the basic infrastructure in place as well. I think we have about 40% internet access here in South Africa. We need to get it to 100% until people can really benefit and really ride this bandwagon and really be an inclusive fourth industrial revolution.
So it actually is also just about, countries spending and rolling out the requisite infrastructure, but also spending quite a lot on education and skills. Right?
I think skills will be key. The digital literacy, improving equity access of education, early childhood education will be crucial in order to really make this transformation.
All right, we'll leave it there.
Thank
for
you.
your time. Today, Gemma Corrigan is Practice Lead for Inclusive Growth at the World Economic Forum.